Today, Dr. John Trowbridge is answering a question I think all of us have. How do we get sick? How do we humans get sick? And he's going to expound a little bit on something called biofilms. Ever not brush your teeth for a few days? Of course you haven't. You watch Know the Cause. Those of you who haven't, like I didn't in Vietnam, know what a biofilm is. I'm going to teach you a little bit of what diet is right for the cancer patient. And then toward the end of the show, what foods feed fungus? So if fungus is the root cause of your health problems, what you have to do is stop eating what fungus craves. Sugars, carbohydrates, and so forth. You simultaneously kill it with supplements or meds, and you starve it, and it's a bingo. All that and more on Know the Cause. My name is Doug Kaufman. For the past 40 years, I've dedicated my life and even my career to finding the root cause of disease. Join me in a team of physicians, pharmacists, and scientists, and soon you too will know the cause. You know, this is a promise I made to you some time ago. I'm going to continue talking about cancer. I'm not an oncologist. I'm not a registered dietitian. I'm an old guy who happens to have been researching for the past 50 years because so many in my family have had this disease called cancer, and likely you too. And we are erroneously, it's an error. We are erroneously telling people that, well, you have prostate cancer, Doug, because your dad had it. Or what about your grandfather? Or what about his great uncle on the third side? You know, the nonsense that prevails with these discussions. I never, even BRCA, folks, I have talked to people who have had breasts removed because they had a positive gene. What caused the genetic mutation? It wasn't the breast. What caused the genetic mutation? Because my field of interest is mycology. The role of fungi getting inside our body, off-gassing poisons and causing DNA mutations, breaking the DNA strands, okay? So I want to talk today about something that should light you all up. These were slides that were going to be given to oncologists, so they're a little bit technical, just bear with me. Cancer patients and diet, I've changed them a little bit to make it more user-friendly. Diet should be one of the most important therapies and treatments for cancer patients. I firmly believe that. You won't find that out there anywhere. I began my search at the National Cancer Institute website, cancer.gov. Now, wouldn't you think it'd be the nationalcancerinstitute.com? No, it's cancer.gov, because I want to know what cancer patients should eat to help treat their cancers, okay? So there I go, cancer.gov, and the first thing you see is click here to donate. I gotta tell you, folks, we got a problem. When you go to these websites, donate, and they have children with cancer, and that's sad. It's sad to me too, but man, they want your money. Why? For a cure for cancer? For a cause of cancer? No, they just need to hire more dietitians and more cancer people. Just, I locate a recommended diet for cancer patients, but only a cancer patient who has had surgery. There's no diet on this website that I could find for people who just got cancer and they want to know, what diet should I follow? Its recommendation was to increase calories by frying foods using gravy, mayonnaise, and salad dressing. I'm not kidding you on this. I am as serious as a heart attack. Increase your calorie intake by frying your foods and using gravies, mayonnaise, and salad dressings. But it didn't stop there. Good choices, they say, these are patients who have had surgery, include whole milk, ice cream, peanut butter, and other foods. If constipation is a problem after this surgery, they recommend whole grain cereals and whole grain breads, among others. So I said, okay, I don't know what I could eat if I'm a cancer patient, so I'm going to move on to cancer.org. Surely they have the answers. Watch what happens when I get there. Click here to donate. This website is actually one of several that the American Cancer Society, or ACS, have. I don't know why they don't have AmericanCancerSociety.com, but they have a whole lot of websites. I did not see a recommended cancer diet on any of those that I looked at. Instead, they defer nutritional questions to the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. So I tried to find that. Actually, it's not the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. It's called eatright.org. So I move on to .org, eatright.org. On this one, I don't see give us money. I see find an expert. This is a marketing website, and you'll see by whom in a minute. I quickly learned that cancer.org has referred the cancer patient to this promotional text right there on Eat Right. This is dietitians. You need an individualized nutrition plan based on your likes, dislikes, lifestyle, symptoms, and concerns. A registered dietitian nutritionist is a key resource for helping maximize your cancer treatment. Is that not sales and promotion? Look, I had a lump in my breast. They tell me that this thing might be stage 4. They're going to do some further testing. I'm scared. I don't want to donate money to your website, and I may not want a registered dietitian. When I think of registered dietitians, folks, they're very much like physicians, really bright women and bright men. But they have gone through an educational process that I call resocialization. These were the people that worked within the food pyramid some years ago. You have to understand they're going to recommend lots of cancer intervention with lots of oncologists, lots of medications. Oh, and eat some ice cream and fry your foods. I don't know if that's what they recommend, but you have to hire one. This website is about hiring them. There's no published diet. Rather, for more information, I am to go to the American Cancer Society website, so it says, which is cancer.org. I have come full cycle. I was going to have a dog chasing its tail for the next slide. This is what a cancer patient feels like. You have oncologists saying, oh, we don't know much about cancer and diet, and supplements tend to interfere with our very valuable therapies. I'm so lost, I'm telling you folks. Thank God I don't have cancer, because I would be one of the many that would die of it. I want answers. How did I get this? Oh, your home was moldy. Oh, you took too many antibiotics. Oh, you drank too much when you were younger. These are all ways mycotoxins, fungal poisons enter your body, but none of them are going to stand there and talk to you about diet or nutritional supplements. So what often comes up last, I think, should come up first. Why? It's logical, isn't it? Did you ever eat fajitas and you feel really, really guilty afterwards? Wouldn't it be great if there were guiltless fajitas? Now there are.
Hi everybody, welcome to Know the Cause. Today we're going to be cooking some Phase 1 approved beef fajitas. Now this delicious recipe is out of Eating Your Way to Good Health by Doug Kaufman. There are some delicious, simple, family-friendly recipes in here. You'll find this one on page 164. Now what we've done is pre-marinated our skirt steak in a delicious simple marinade of lime juice, olive oil, a little cumin, and salt and pepper. We marinated that overnight. Marinating it overnight for anywhere from 4 to 8 hours is going to tenderize the beef and also give it a lot of flavor. We have a beautiful cast iron skillet that's going to give your beef some really nice grill marks. We cooked it for about 4 to 6 minutes on each side. That's going to give you about a medium well with a little bit of pink inside. Not overdone, but not too rare either. So I did that meat first, and then I added in my vegetables. We have red and green peppers and white onions. Caramelizing those onions in a little bit of olive oil is going to give them a nice caramel flavor, nice caramelized. Which is going to work really well with your beef. So we're just going to take our beef and start by cutting it against the grain. Now you want to cut it against the grain because the fibers of the meat are going to go lengthwise, and if you were to cut it that way, it would be way too chewy and it would be a mouthful. So you're going to go the opposite direction, and that's just perpendicular of the fibers of the meat. You want a nice long cut because you want it to be kind of the same size as your vegetables so everything can roll up in your tortilla nicely. I can't wait to tell you about the tortillas we're gonna have today. Go ahead and cut up the whole steak. And I'm just gonna do enough to kind of wrap one up and show you how it's done. Now, those tortillas I was talking about, we all know that flour and corn are not allowed on the phase 1 diet, but you know what are? Seeds, and we have seed tortillas today. This is my company, Guiltless Foods. These tortillas are made from seeds. It's a combination of 7 of the most delicious seeds and nutrient-dense egg whites, garlic salt, oregano, and sea salt, and that's all. Here we've already warmed some up. We just put them on a skillet, kind of browned them on both sides. It was about a minute on each side, get them nice and crispy, but they're still really soft and can fold together. So I'm gonna grab one of these plates here, a tortilla. If you wanted some guacamole, you might start with your guacamole first. I am just gonna start with my steak. Push. 1 to 2, maybe 3 pieces, depending on who you're making it for. My husband is a carnivore, so if I was making this for him, I'd probably do like 4 or 5 pieces of meat. All of our vegetables, get everything, the red, green peppers, and onions as well. And then we have some delicious cilantro. It's got that big, bold, bright flavor. Might chop it up a little bit, let's see. Move that over. Just grab your leaves, chop it up real fast. Just to add a little bit of that freshness, that light, bold, yummy, fresh flavor, a little pico de gallo right on top. Look at how fresh and delicious this is. Fajitas are one of the healthiest Mexican foods you can eat, especially when you're eating it with a guiltless tortilla. Top it off with a squeeze of fresh lime, and voila, you have a healthy beef fajita. This recipe and more on Know the Cause. There'll be a link to Guiltless Foods where you can order these great seed tortillas. Thanks, guys.
I have to laugh. Anytime Dr. Trowbridge comes in, we've just known each other too long. Maybe that's it. We've become too much like each other. I'll go and watch him lecture at a symposium. He'll go and watch me lecture at a symposium. We go back about 35 to 40 years.
Almost 40.
40 years.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, lots happened. Mm-hmm. We didn't know the word back then, biofilm.
Yep.
And folks, I got to tell you, 20 years ago or so, I started reading in the scientific literature Scotch tape. Think Scotch tape. Biofilm of bacteria grow. We didn't know the fungus word, 20 years ago, but now we're finding some of these little buggers are fungal biofilms. You have a lot of experience. I mean, you do so many things. You're so excited about stem cells that you're doing and so forth. You have a potpourri practice. I mean, you'll see the urinary tract infections, you'll see the migraine headaches, but what you love is a complex patient.
Right.
So your office told me. One that has headaches and vaginal yeast infections and sore joints and stomach problems.
You left out the skin.
The skin, one that has skin, one that has a skin, dermatitis. Because that's a complex individual who sees, by the way, a skinologist, a headologist,
Exactly.
a throatologist,
They've
a
got a separate
neologist.
doctor for everyone.
Right, separate doctor. But you're kind of and I use this word lightly, a jack of all trades. You know how to fix all of those things with many of these patients. Do tell about biofilms and how they get inside us.
I got to tell you, Doug, it's really simple to fix those folks. You just have to go through the proper steps because there's only really 3 things going on. Something is blocking you from getting better, got to get rid of it. Something you need but you're missing, got to provide it. The switches need to be turned on, turn them on, and let God do the work because he built the system, okay?
Yep.
When you look at how we get sick, it's because there's a breakdown in the immune barrier to keeping us healthy, okay? And the simplest way to understand the breakdown is, don't brush your teeth tonight. Tomorrow morning when you get up, you'll feel kind of like a scum in your mouth. That's a biofilm. Every wet surface we have has a biofilm.
And it's all wet inside.
It's all wet inside, and that's where stuff grows. What kind of stuff? Well, the good bacteria, we want those, okay? And things that really don't bother us, we want those. What about the bad guys? Oh yeah, they grow there. And then we take antibiotics, we get cortisone, we get injuries and stress, we have bad food. That changes the nature of the biofilm. Now, the interesting thing about biofilm is it is integrally related to the bacteria growing in our systems, in our sinuses, in our gut. Now we've got this is called the microbiome, the little bacteria set growing inside us. Now we know that breast tissue has its own microbiome, okay?
Wow,
Everywhere we've got a system that has fluid flow, okay, we have biofilms and microbiomes. Now, the key is that because the biofilm is intimately related to your surfaces, you can absorb everything, all the toxins that they produce. That's where the syndrome comes from. Yeast infection is one thing. Yeast syndrome is where the poison is percolating inside you, damaging your system all over. That's why the complex patient has this, and that. And that's why the specialists don't see it. They're just looking at their little spot in the world.
I'm an ear, nose, and throat doctor. I listened to an ENT doctor up here locally in Dallas speak at the College of Osteopathic annual meeting. CME, I gave a talk on cancer or fungus, and this doctor got up and he said, and he's local, I see him all the time, nice guy, and he said, you know, years ago there was this paper that came out on chronic sinusitis being fungal, and I don't think there's any merit to it. It's since been disputed.
He said that?
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Okay, good.
And
good.
I couldn't believe I was hearing it. And the doctor I was with was elbowing me, you know, the whole time. I know, I'm listening. Folks, anytime they don't agree, it's okay in science, this is self-policing business, to discredit. You know, here's a Mayo Clinic said 96% of all this, when we talk like that, is linked to fungus, and yet along came some ear, nose, and throat guys and said, well, antibiotics are selling like hotcakes. Let's keep them on antibiotics. What if they're making that problem worse? Because don't women who take a lot of antibiotics end up with vaginal yeast?
Absolutely.
So I wonder if treating a fungal condition with an antibiotic is worsening it.
Oh, absolutely. But think of it. All infections are fungal conditions because fungus is pervasive. It's just trying to make a happy meal out of you. It's all it's doing, okay? It's its job. It's supposed to recycle animals and plants. It's doing a great job. You're quite a nice, warm, fuzzy animal.
You're a host.
You're a great host, exactly.
It was in, oh gosh, it must have been in the late 70s. I got a call from Dr. Trowbridge. I lived in LA. He was going to be on television talking about food allergy. He was doing food allergy testing, and he wanted me to come on. I flew to Houston, and we went on TV, and we had an absolute ball. Years later, he would write a book called The Yeast Syndrome. It's still a best-selling book 30 years later. He has a very busy practice out in the Houston area, but he still sees patients who have these difficult syndromes going on. 1-800
Fix pain.
I don't know how you got that. 1-800-FIX-PAIN is his telephone number. Thank you, Dr. Trowbridge.
Thank you, Doug.
You bet. It's just so sad to me that so many doctors still believe diet doesn't play a role. Folks, their education, what they're saying in reality is, I don't know. Their education didn't cover diet. It covers biochemistry, but that's a little bit different than nutrition. And then you have dietitians and nutritionists telling us we need whole grains. According to my studies, we don't need whole grains. And this wasn't started by me. Does a grain-free diet work for everyone? Probably not. When I discovered that fungus, that's my whole, know the cause. Fungus initiates disease. When I discovered this, I began seriously reviewing what feeds fungus. They're living organisms, they're parasites inside man, and they spew a gas or a liquid or a solid called a mycotoxin. So I began studying, wait a minute, we can't get rid of these mycotoxins. Well, now we know maybe zinc and curcumin and orange oils and so forth can get rid of some of these mycotoxins. And we know the greens can help get rid of them too. The chlorophyll in greens absorb them, and then we get rid of them through the urine or something like that. So the bottom line to all of this is, what diet starves fungus? And I really studied this. Fungus, well, here's a classic example. 1944, the Manual of Clinical Mycology. Mycology is the study of fungus. Doctors don't learn it in medical school, so you got to dip back many years to understand this. They were talking about, on page 148 of this, 1944, during World War II, an old book, 70 years old. They're talking about people who had serious malnutrition grew yeast through their bodies very readily because they were suffering from, you know, malnutrition. They weren't getting any foods. And so when you're down, your immune system's down like that, this yeast, which is an opportunistic organism, it'll take over, begins growing and growing and growing. And a reference in this book, 1944, is absolutely a classic. Let me read you it verbatim. Now, they didn't know that back then what fungus ate, but they said in order to overcome yeast A low carbohydrate diet is necessary. A low carbohydrate diet is necessary. They hadn't put one and one together. They didn't know that fungus and yeast is single cell, fungus is multi-cell. So yeast is really a species of fungus. They didn't know that they were starving the yeast or the fungus in the body by ordering a low carbohydrate diet. Remember our high carb fads that we went through? Eat grains 6-7 times a day, yada, yada. That pyramid was just upside down. We need to flip it over. Eat more pure meats. And by that, I mean grass-fed, grass-finished. Make sure, I read an article the other day that said up to half of the wild salmon isn't wild salmon at all. The waiter at the restaurant doesn't know, folks. He's going to say, yeah, he's got 14 other tables to take care of. Talk to the owner and see if that grass-fed meat is really grass-fed and the wild-caught salmon was out there in the rivers and not in some farm in Missouri being farmed. Bottom line is diet does play a role. If fungus is the cause of so many health problems, then diet does play a role because you can starve it. But those people sitting in the cancer centers getting chemotherapy or irradiated, their doctors have no idea. The diet may have been partially responsible. You see, in our grain supply, the antibiotics, the hormones in meat today and so forth that they're saying are carcinogenic, we could be eating a lot of these mycotoxins and therefore succumbing to real serious diseases, getting real serious diseases and dying of them. Along comes a book that Dr. Dave Holland and I wrote a dozen years ago. This book is called The Fungus Link to Diabetes, right? In this book, we talk about the ability of real foods, green foods, lycopene in a tomato, stopped one of these poisonous mycotoxins from binding to our body. Broccoli, the sulforaphane in broccoli blocked these mycotoxins from going through our body and really hurting us. So it all gets back to this. Before we end up in a clinic talking to a doctor about, our knees don't work, our hips don't work, horrible depression, this lump on our neck, etc., really think back. Did you live in a moldy home? Could that mold have been inhaled and now be spreading through your bloodstream and look like one of these diseases? Were you on lots of antibiotics? Antibiotics are mycotoxins. They're poisonous to bacteria. Thank God they are. But if you've been on a lot of them, maybe that has some effect on what's gone wrong with you. And then finally, have you been eating all the wrong foods? See, since medicine doesn't know, that makes drug companies very happy. Okay? Don't go away. More to come. Thank you so much for joining us today. By the way, thank you, Lindsay and Daniel. We just got to see their third little baby. Gorgeous, wonderful couple they are. Thank you, Dr. John Trowbridge, for coming in and spending a little time with us and educating us on how we get sick and the role of biofilms in that sickness. Did you like the ending today where we talked about fungi that actually feed our illness, and how do we feed that fungi? Those foods feed the fungi that we were talking about, okay? Thank you for joining us today. God bless you. You want to see this again? KnowTheCause.com. Free. See you next time.